So, I want to start somewhere calm, not with a headline, not with panic, not with the kind of urgency that tells you what to think before you've had time to think. Just with a trajectory of sorts. Because most people imagine democracy falling all at once, like a dramatic moment. Cue the music, fade to black. But history doesn't really work that way. Democracies don't usually collapse. They make adjustments. Small ones, reasonable ones, the kind that sound responsible when explained slowly. They don't announce that freedom is ending. They fine-tune definitions. They reinterpret laws. They narrow who protections apply to. All very professional and very legal. And almost always, the first pressure point isn't elections. It isn't courts even. It's information. Who gets to document reality? Who gets to question power? Who is considered an observer? And who suddenly counts as a participant? That distinction matters. Because historically, when authorities start blurring the lines, it's never framed as suppression. It's framed as clarification. We've seen this before. At the turn of the 20th century, Ida B. Wells documented lynching with names, data, and receipts. She wasn't accused of being wrong. She was accused of being disruptive, which is usually what happens when facts arrive uninvited. During the civil rights era, Simeon Booker reported on the murder of Emmett Till. That kind of reporting came with surveillance, threats, and very strong opinions about where journalists should and shouldn't stand. Ethel Payne asked uncomfortable questions from inside the White House press corps, which turned out to be a problem. Not because the questions were wrong, but because they were asked out loud. The work was never dismissed as inaccurate. It was treated as destabilizing. More recently, journalists of all backgrounds have been arrested, detained, and charged while covering protests and demonstrations. Credentials challenged, cameras confiscated, presence reinterpreted. Because apparently documenting something and participating in it can look very similar, depending on how uncomfortable the footage makes people. Authoritarianism doesn't usually arrive loudly. It shows up with paperwork. It doesn't say you can't speak. It says you can speak, just not like that. Not here, not now, not without consequences. We'll explain later. Which brings us to now. A journalist is arrested while covering a protest. Federal charges, carefully worded explanation. Everything very orderly. Now, on a human level, as quickly as this situation came up, I generally hope this goes just as easily. I expect Don Lemon will be fine. Resilience seems to be a familiar lane for him. The bigger issue sits elsewhere, because this isn't about journalists, and it's not about whether you like him or not. It's about logic. Was this person documenting an event or participating in it? Because once that line becomes flexible, it stays flexible. Inconveniently so. Democracies don't disappear when tanks roll in. They erode when people get used to recalibration. When laws designed to protect rights quietly expand their job description. When witnessing becomes suspicious. When telling the truth turns into legal gray area. If recording events can be reclassified as interference, who decides when observation becomes a crime? And if democracy relies on an informed public, what happens when informing the public becomes inconvenient? What a way to bring in Black History Month. Perfect timing.